Hey guys, it's Dr. Travis Howell from Howell Chiropractic. I'm here with my friend Kari Stearns from Revolution Counseling Services, and we're here because Monday kicks off May. It's May 1st, and that is Mental Health Awareness. And so we're a strong believer in our office, in our life philosophy here, that if you want to be good at really anything, you hire a coach to do that, right? Tiger Woods has a coach, Michael Jordan has a coach, Ronaldo has a coach, even Bradley Cooper has a voice coach. But hey, if we look at everyday people, if you want to be better at physical health, you hire a trainer, right? If you want to be better with your diet, you hire a nutritional coach. But hey, when it comes to your mental health, there's this stigma and this hesitation to get help. And so we really want to have that conversation here because it's really mental health awareness. It's really about building that awareness of what you can do. It's not necessarily that mental health challenges exist. I think we all know that, but building the awareness of when should we go, what should we do, what resources are out there. And so that's why I wanted to meet with Kari today, to really help kick this off and really dive into what mental health awareness really means in reality and what we can do. So I think we're really talking to two groups of people directly, even though I think everybody can benefit from this conversation. But those are the people out there that really need a coach. They might not know they need a coach yet. They might not know when they should reach out to hire that mental health coach or that licensed mental health professional. And then also, since there's a chiropractor sitting here, we also have people out there that have that health coach or have that mental health coach, but they've reached this plateau, or they can't seem to break through, because really in life the body does keep the score. And so that stress that you've had, that mental challenge that you've had, any of those things you've been working with through time, if you're not addressing where it's being stored in the body through things like chiropractic care and balancing the nervous system, then that's a group of people we need to have a conversation about today too. So we've talked a little bit about this in the past, but I kind of want to put it all together into kind of one conversation to really start with, what do you feel is the most important from this month as far as building that awareness of what role you play in this process at your office?
Well, I think Mental Health Awareness Month for May is really important, but it's actually every month we should be looking at this, not just one month. So how can we extend it on to June, July, August, and the rest of the year, not just 1 month where we want to really focus on that? Like you said, May 1st on Monday does kick off Mental Health Awareness Month, but I think it's important to extend it all years, all the rest of the year. Every month should be important to focus on mental health. You asked me more questions.
Yeah. So is it real cut and dry mental health? It's like, hey, look, is the starting point like, hey, I've got a problem, I'm about to have some kind of a panic attack? Is that when we should reach out, or do you feel like we're missing the boat at some point, at somewhere of where do we start the conversation?
Well, I like to tell my clients, or even people that are talking about mental health, not to wait until a panic attack happens. Like, let's get in there first. Let's have somebody that you can rely on or fall back on, which would be a mental health therapist. So maybe if you're shifting jobs, if you had a baby, if you're in a new relationship, if you're moving, starting college, any of those things that can stress us out, it would be good to reach out to a therapist to talk to them.
And is it a sign that you're broken if you have to talk to somebody?
Absolutely not. There's so many people that seek counseling and just talk therapy, period, to go into an office where you don't know that therapist, and that therapist doesn't know anything about you, and you can literally tell them anything in confidence.
That's great, because I think too, just like I mentioned, that like literally when we look at like professional athletes, we're like, oh well, it's because they have so much talent, or it's because they have so much money, or it's because XYZ. We can kind of fill it in, but really, I think their goal obviously is that they want to get as good as they can at something. Their mental health as well. So they don't really hesitate. But we only see what's on TV. We only see what's on social media, and what's actually put out there. So what's a good way for someone to learn the reality of what real life is like? Like if they have to reach out to somebody, I guess is there like a low level entry where it's not like super stressful. And it's just like, hey, can I just have a chat? Can I just talk to somebody? Is that?
I think any of those life changes that that I had said before, those are good reasons to reach out to somebody. Or if you're sleeping too much, if you feel stressed out, if you are having trouble, like if your appetite's changed even a little bit, and you're eating too much or too little, that's a time to reach out to somebody as well. Not to wait until it's this big thing, to where then you're in kind of the fight or flight mode and you don't have any of the resources that you need and you're like scurrying to get them, then it can turn into something that's really hard to manage.
Right, and since you mentioned that fight or flight mode, what we notice too, obviously as chiropractors, we're working with that nervous system balance. And when we meet a lot of people, right, they have postural changes, they have a whole bunch of different changes because they're stuck in that survival mode. I mean, the fight or flight mechanism is designed for if there's a tiger coming at our table right here, we're like, oh no, I got to get the heck out of here, right? And so we're going to go into that flexion posture, that protection. We're going to try to get from point A to point B. A lot of our normal bodily functions, like that digestion, cognitive thought, right? Just like good, like, hey, I can go out of here and look at this situation and say, is this a good thing that's happening? All that's gone because we just have to survive, right? So the reality is most of us don't have an actual tiger in our day. We just have all this other stress that is stopping us from really functioning at our best, right? And so, you know, our goal obviously is to look at it from a whole body standpoint. But what do you find is the best like first step for someone?
The first step for someone is reaching out to find a therapist, and you can do that online. You can ask your doctor for referrals, but I always like to tell people, go online, search Psychology Today, and just start reading people's profiles and seeing who you think you can mesh with. I told a client one time, because he had said to me, I really don't like my therapist that I see. And I said, well, it's like a restaurant, right? There's a ton of restaurants in the Quad Cities. Where's your favorite? And he told me, and I said, I absolutely hate that restaurant, because I do. And I said, so I won't go eat there. It's the same as a therapist. You may not connect with a therapist, so it's okay to go and find a different one or to try a couple of them out until you find the one that you feel most safe with. So when you talk about like the lion or the tiger coming at us, let's not wait till that happens. Let's do that when we're feeling a little stressed or overwhelmed or maybe even depressed. We start looking out for those therapists so we can find the right fit. And it's not something that has to be ongoing. Like some people think I have to see a therapist every week, and that's not necessarily true. Especially when we're going through small life changes or small stresses. You could see a therapist weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. You could even sometimes have a therapist kind of not on call necessarily, but somebody that you can reach out to and say, I want to get back in. I have a couple things I want to talk about. And then they can rotate back in. It could go a couple months before you see somebody again in a therapy office.
Well, because it's good to talk to, if you have a circle of people, and it's good to talk to them, but they're, you know, by default, by design, their goal in your friends circle and your family circle is to support you and tell you you're making the right decision. So I would assume you find it very beneficial to have someone completely outside of that to say, hey, let me look at this completely objectively, no emotion, no ties to it, and let me just give you my guidance to help them, right?
Right. That and like unconditional positive regard constantly in therapy. So we're always supportive, we're always pointing out things and even discussing what the symptoms look like, because a lot of us don't know what anxiety symptoms look like or depression, any of those things. We think we know because we see people depressed, that maybe on TV or when we read about, but it doesn't look like that for everybody. So getting that feedback from a therapist, from a professional, saying, like, it sounds like you haven't been eating a lot, you haven't been sleeping well, and that's another thing that's huge. It's one of the first questions I'll ask, how have you been sleeping? Because sleep is such an important factor for anybody. And I think that that's something to point out to people. Like, it doesn't sound like you're sleeping very or enough throughout the night, so how can we improve that?
Yeah, I find that parallel too. Actually, a lot of things that you just said, I find the parallel in our two fields. The first one is, I feel like it's pretty common that if you don't really enjoy your experience at your dentist, you don't like stop cleaning your teeth. You just go to someone else, right? And if you don't enjoy your experience at your medical doctor's office, you're just like, I'm just gonna go somewhere else. But when it comes to like mental health and chiropractic too, when someone says, hey, I think you should go talk to somebody. No, I tried that before. It doesn't work for me. Because just like we've talked in the past, you have people that you are like, you were put on this earth. These are this is
Absolutely.
the people, these are the cases, this is who I'm meant to serve. If I meet someone that's not in there, I'm going to help them find another person. But there's different. Just like I'm meant to serve certain populations in chiropractic care. I'm not here to serve every single one of them. But there's plenty of us out there that it's important to find that right fit, right?
Yeah, and that's what I'll tell a new client. If this doesn't work out, or you don't feel that I'm helping you, or we're not a good fit, I'm never going to take that personally. Because what's most important is you, not me, and how I feel. So let me help you find somebody that may be a better fit, and that's okay. I would never take something like that personally, as I don't think you would either.
No, I think maybe when I first started practice, but I've been doing this way too long.
Probably, if I was being honest.
Take things personally anymore. But yeah, that's great. And then from a fight or flight or that kind of getting stuck in that position, a lot of times it takes us away from, in our offices we call it whole brain function, okay? And so when that ultimately happens is we lose the ability to see what's coming next, right? And for example, right, a little kid, let's start with little kids,
Okay.
and then let's grow that into adults. If I'm a little brother, which I was, 2 older sisters, if I reach a point where my stress of my day, right, the demand placed upon me has actually exceeded my ability to constructively respond to it, I'm going to do something that I know the outcome of. So it puts me back in control of the situation. That might be hitting my sister in the face with a shoe, because I've done that. Sorry, Stephanie. It might be breaking a Nerf bat over my sister's leg, because I've done that, right? Because I've lost control of a situation, and I need to get back in control, okay? Now, let's grow that problem, right? Now we have patterns as an adult that we maybe didn't address, or maybe we didn't achieve that balance as a kiddo. That's okay. But now we're an adult, and we're gonna create, and you can see if you see this in practice or not. We're going to create a pattern of behaviors that when we feel like we've lost control, we're going to revert to doing the same exact thing. Is that what you see?
And it's not, hopefully it's not hitting somebody with a bat.
Correct.
But
Hopefully
it does,
it's not
right?
violent.
That can
Hopefully it's
happen.
not
It can be violent, but it could be substance use. It could be any kind of form of addiction, where when we feel super overwhelmed or we've reached our max, we could turn to things that are negative, like obviously negative coping skills, which could be substance abuse or any kind of addictions.
I mean, some people it's running, some people it's lifting.
And then there is that. Like
I
I do, and I should have said it more in the beginning. I do work with probably 75% men, a population that I have, and I've had some of them tell me, like, when I was anxious, I'd just go to the gym and it'd shove it all back down. And that's the truth in it. Like I think that that's helpful, right? To work out, to get that energy out, but then you need to go talk to somebody about that too, because just working it out and shoving it back down is not going to help it from coming back up.
Right. So it's important that if we find ourselves in that situation of, hey, look, when this happens, this is always my response. Whether we would look at it as a overall positive or overall negative experience, right? If we're looking at it and we're saying, this is a pattern of behavior that I have, that might be an early indicator that, hey, this is when I need to have a conversation.
Absolutely.
Not like, okay, this is completely deconstructed.
Don't wait until the substance abuse or any, but that can turn into that if you take a little kid, what you're talking about, and then those are that reactive pattern continually, and it's not treated right by somebody that's pointing out those patterns, then it could turn into something more negative. Or there's nothing wrong with running. I think it's great, but people could run too much.
Oh, right.
Or they could work out too much, or they could restrict eating or eat too much. Like, there's all that back and forth, and not knowing that it's just your body reacting to the stress that you have, or to being like you said, way overwhelmed with your day. You're finished with it, so then you would react.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, one of the reasons that obviously we start with our workshops talking about how do we get the nervous system balanced, how do we get the function and that whole brain function as early in life as we can, because, you know, like we said, we care a lot about first grade, and we care a lot about third grade, and we care a lot about getting through a rough patch, right? But what we really care when we're working with somebody is how do we set them up for the best success as that adult, because they don't have mom and dad holding their hand and their teachers guiding them along.
Right.
Once they're 100% responsible for them, now they have to go find
Themselves.
you and I
Right.
and themselves and say, hey, who else do I need to put on my team to make sure that this is good? And so I think that's...
Well, just talking about, like, even us talking about this now is bringing the awareness for mental health. And I believe the more we talk about it, even with our kids or around kids, the more it's going to make it normalized. So I hope when the first grader, third grader, sixth, whatever gets older and they're adults like us, they'll know what mental health is, and it'll be such a normalcy within their lives, more so than it is with ours growing up, that they'll reach out for help and know when to reach out for help.
Well, because I think a lot of times too, speaking of those like teenagers into adults, I think, and where we see most of the awareness being built right now is May is going to be full of Facebook posts and commercials, if you guys still get those, of suicide prevention hotlines, and if you say something, if you see something, say something kind of posts as far as behaviors and stuff like that. And I don't think that it should be discounted.
No.
But like you said, if we can start the awareness earlier, if the prevention hotline is our first step, we've really missed a couple layers of that onion first, right?
Right, and I had somebody once explain to me mental health is like an onion with so many different layers, because that's exactly what it is. I don't want anybody to get to the point where suicide's their option, and I feel like if they've gotten to that point, we've failed them. We need to take it back, and we need to really put awareness on mental health, and that everybody can be affected by that, not on necessarily suicide, because I believe in those organizations, and we should talk about it, because the more we talk about it, the less it'll happen, hopefully. But to get somebody from point A to suicide, we need to be in the center of it, talking about mental health and making it more normalized with everyday people like me and you. So then we don't feel like it's like stigmatized to go to a therapist.
Yeah, and I refer people to go to counseling and some kind of a mental health professional all the time, and there is always kind of that initial like,
oh, it's...
What, do you think I'm crazy? Like, what do I need?
Right.
But that is, I think we've done that as a society. We've just put that label on it. But that's not essentially what it means. It means, hey, look, I'm just putting somebody in my corner to support me, to help me get through whatever it is. Even if I got offered a promotion to a job, or I'm going to bring another human into this world, it's okay to have a completely objective,
absolutely,
conversation with somebody that says, hey, look, this is what I'm feeling, and really acknowledge those feelings, and then have somebody help interpret those that's been there before or has been down that path. One of my favorite podcast people, he says, you're best meant to serve the person you used to be, right? So like, you're placed on this planet, right? And one of his principles is find someone who's been through what you've been through, because their best meant here, or their purpose here is probably, even if they don't know yet, I mean, if they're a professional, they probably know that by now, but like, if their best role for you in your life is going to help you get past what they've already gone through, right? So
absolutely. And that's like, I see a lot of court-ordered people, and I get excited when I get them to buy into seeing me, because they have to see me.
Yeah, they're forced to do it.
And once I see, you can tell in the sessions how they'll shift, and it's like, wait a second, this is working. I can trust her. I can talk about all this stuff. This isn't just another thing I have to check off to do. So when they can see the value in just sharing things from the past, things that they are worried about in the future, and processing it, I think that's when we're winning on all levels. And even with my private practice patients, when they come in and they can see, wait a second, going in here and talking to her about stuff and having an ally on my side and encouraging me and kind of pushing me past my comfort level, but not too much, I think it's important.
I love that. Now the other thing we wanted to talk about, or at least I wanted to talk about, I'm the host, so was now there's going to be people that you've worked with as well, right? Mm-hmm. And that you are currently working with that they seem to get some good changes, and we run into this sometimes because we get referrals from mental health professionals on a regular basis.
Good.
And what we find is that we've gotten some good change, we've gotten some good result, but that overwhelm that they're feeling, that the fact that their stress of their day, their demand on their system has exceeded and continues to exceed their body's ability to respond to it, their nervous system's ability to respond. And that's literally what we do as chiropractors, whether we're working with kids or working with adults. As we can get us out of that flexion, that protection, that fight or flight mode, and we can get that proper range of motion and alignment of the spine, we can get that, sacrum, if you guys have looked into this process, and that upper cervical spine, the two calming parts of the nervous system, if we can get those more activated and less locked up, then we can then be a facilitator to what you're already doing. We're not replacing anything, and certainly I'm not coaching anybody from a mental health standpoint. So we each have our lane and our role in that process. And so sometimes we'll meet that person that said, hey, look, I've tried this, or I'm trying this, but I'm just not getting there. And we can say, hey, well, what if we looked under the hood and said, okay, well, what's going on within that nervous system balance? Are you just stuck in a fight or flight? And so all the things you're trying to change and the other behaviors you're trying to create, what if we looked at the input that's creating the behavior, right? And said, okay, well, maybe the body's just perceiving everything as a stress. And then that's our role.
I believe it does. I believe that. And I can only do so much. Mental health therapists can only do so much. So referring them to a chiropractor so they can get adjusted and everything, like you said, under the hood can be working properly. The two of us together, chiropractors and mental health therapists or professionals, can really be like the whole that a person might need.
Yeah, it's certainly a team approach. I think with anything that we're going to be working with in the healthcare space, there's not really anybody that has, a 6-lane highway. We've each got like our lane, and we need to just make sure we're doing the best. For that
absolutely,
client,
absolutely. Right? I'm obviously a big believer in talk therapy. I don't think we can just prescribe something and then everything is going to go away, because that will work and it will be great, but then we're not talking about the things that brought us to that prescriber or that doctor. So or even like bringing yourself to the chiropractor, we're not talking about the stress that you have day to day, that just going and seeing somebody might help, and the adjustments and the doctors.
Yeah. Well, and I think the overwhelm of our day also, and just kind of where we're at in society, has kind of led us down this path that taking something for a symptom is way easier than working through the symptom, whether you're working it through with chiropractic care or fitness or diet changes or mental health.
Right.
Like we've said, I don't necessarily want to put the work in sometimes. Sometimes it's just easier.
Putting it in.
It is. But the reward on the other side of that is so huge.
Right. It is. And I think too, when you were talking about that, it's going and seeing your chiropractor and going for regular adjustments, not just because I feel fine and I don't have any pain in my body, but like keeping up on that is the same with mental health. I talked to her for 6 months and I feel great, but just to continue to have that some person to reach out to, it's not one and done and we're fixed. Like we've got to keep working on that.
Right. Yeah. What does Gray Matters Collective do?
The Gray Matters Collective started at Augie, and what we do is go into the schools and they have their own chapters. So like when it started in 2018, now 5 years or whatever years later, we have I think like 30 school chapters in the area, and it's just student ran. So it's them talking about mental health and putting that awareness out there. And the reason it's called Gray Matters is because mental health isn't black and white. Like we can't say like, oh, that's somebody that looks like they're really depressed. We can't, like, it's always in the people in the gray that don't know what they're supposed to do to get the help, or don't know what anxiety looks like or feels like, or what depression looks. We don't know. There's so many people that walk around and think like, well, I'm okay. This is normal, right? Like stress is normal. Raising kids and feeling overwhelmed is normal. They're those people in the gray.
Right.
So what the Gray Matters Collective does is try to bring that mental health awareness to everybody, and they start at the high school level. And there's some chapters in the junior highs and elementaries, and then there's a monthly women's group called the Women in Gray, and then there's a monthly adult group, but teens and adult group, where everybody gets together and just talks about literally anything. It can be self-care, it can be self-awareness, it can be diagnoses, how to find mental health services. It can be sitting on the floor and making posters that say "You matter," mental health matters, stuff like that. Like anything.
So they have like a referral network within there, like if you need to go out beyond that.
If you reach out to Gray Matters is on Facebook, Instagram. There's a website too, so you could Google the Gray Matters Collective and it'll pop up, and there's resources that Haley has listed on the website, and then there's resources within the Facebook page.
Is that just the Quad Cities thing?
That's just the Quad Cities.
All right.
Yeah.
That's cool. Whose idea was that?
Well, Haley, if she was here, would explain the story way better than I would, so I'm not going to go into it much, but she noticed that there was kind of a lack of awareness when she was going to Augie, and her and Kevin Donovan started a campaign. She called it a campaign, and it was just one night where they were going to all get together and start talking about mental health, and it just blew up from there.
That's awesome. So what's the website?
The Gray Matters Collective.
Okay. So if anybody is essentially watching this from outside the Quad Cities, do you think probably you'd have to find somebody local? You'd have to. Is there like a big resource out there, or is Google the really best first start to say, hey, let me just look up those profiles that you mentioned. Let me see what office might be the best for me, but then be 100% okay with if you met with someone in the consult or whatever, and you said, hey, this just isn't working. Be okay with trying it again.
Absolutely. And that's hard, though, to know, like, okay, it took so much energy to look for a therapist, pick a therapist, go into that office, and then be like, oh, we're not connecting.
Yeah.
To then ask somebody to do that all over again, that's a lot. It is. But you're right, that's what it is. I don't know. I'm a fan of Google searching. So if I just typed in mental health therapist near me, then people are going to pull up. Hopefully, with the idea of, say, a place like Gray Matters or an organization like Gray Matters, we're talking about mental health constantly. So hopefully a friend that you know might go to a therapist, and you can say, hey, who's your therapist, or who would you recommend? And that those recommendations get thrown out, and that will help guide somebody. Or a doctor, a chiropractor, a primary doctor, a med prescriber can also say, here, these are a list of therapists that I think would work well with you. I'll have people reach out to me a lot and will say, I want to start therapy. Well, either I can't get them in right away, or I can't match up with their schedule, or I don't take their insurance. And I'm like, all right, hold on, let's find somebody. So I know I can pull like colleagues that I've worked with in the past, people that I know are really good therapists that this person would fit well with, and give those referrals to people. So even if you find a therapist that maybe you like online and you read their bio and they can't get you in, ask them, like, who would you refer out to?
Right, yeah, make sure you keep up with, I mean, I know I always use sports analogies, but like if you went to the plate and you're a baseball player and you hit the ball 3 times out of every 10 times you went up there, you're still making the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most people hit it somewhere between 1 to 2 times. So that kind of same analogy in life, like we got to just keep on taking the at-bats, because they're not always going to be the perfect fit every single time.
And that's why when you said in the beginning, like, let's not wait until it's a big thing. Let's do it when it's like you can feel it, like, or when there's shifts in your day-to-day, or the big events that you have coming up, like reaching out to somebody or starting that process now will make it a lot easier.
Very good. Yes, start the conversation, right? And that's what we hope. That's what we hope May is, as obviously we hope all 12 months is like that. But if we can really take something away from Mental Health Awareness Month, it's, hey, let's start the conversation. Let's get rid of the stigma, but let's certainly not wait for that friend's post because they had a tragedy in a family, or that suicide hotline commercial or Spotify ad. Let's say, hey, if I'm going through any real life change or I have any question that I need an objective input, let me reach out to these resources and really say, hey, who can I put on my team to make sure that my mental fitness is where I need it to be, to live at 100% of me? Because our biggest thing is, hey, look, you don't have time to not live 100% you. So who do we need to put on the team to get to that point?
Right. I think it takes a lot of people. It's not just one person. So having a big team helps.
For sure. And when they all understand like what each person's doing,
how we work
like,
together, that's even
better.
Yeah, it is even better.
I love it. I want to thank Kari for joining us today. Pay attention to, keep an eye on our social. We're sharing a whole bunch of information throughout the month to really build that awareness. And we know that every person that watches this video is probably in a different spot. So we talked about Google, we talked about Great Matters Collective, we talked about the resources you have, but if you're in a bind and you need something now, you can always text or call 988, and it doesn't matter. We're not downplaying or saying, hey, if we're to that point of suicidal thoughts, we certainly need to reach out. But we can reach out anywhere along that line. So we hear you, we see you, we're here to help you. So you can reach out to us, you can reach out to that text number, 988. You can call it or text it, and really just make sure that you're getting connected with the people that are going to best serve you to help you through whatever it is that you're going through. Because we know there's resources out there, and I know it takes a little bit of work to get there, but they're there, and we're here to help you find them. So keep in touch with us, reach out if you need anything, and we look forward to helping you throughout the month to build awareness for mental health.